Hello dear students, hope you are all doing well. Welcome to this lecture of Strategic Human Resource Management. The topic which we will be discussing today is repatriation. I am Dr. Tripti Barthwal, I am Director, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management and Development Studies, Lucknow. So, in the earlier lecture, we have talked about expatriation or the concept of expatriates. That means whenever a person is being sent from his home country for an international assignment, whether it can be a short term or it can be a long term or it can be later on it can become a permanent assignment for work reasons, then he is called an expatriate, that we all have already discussed. Now, we will discuss the other part of expatriation, that is when the assignment is over. We have discussed that how important it is to train the employee, make him aware of the culture or of the country in which he will be moving to, train him in the language, etc. So, now suppose this employee has moved to a foreign country, he has worked there for 5 years and successfully done everything there. And now the assignment is over, that project is over and the person is moving back to his or her home country. So, that process is called repatriation, and let us look at what are the issues involved in repatriation and how the role of the HR manager or the HR department is important. Repatriation is a process of returning back from an international assignment to a home country after completing the assignment or some other issues. In the last step of the expatriation cycle, it is the last step in the expatriation cycle and it involves readjustment and re-entry of international managers and their family back to their home country. So, it is again like expatriation was a process of adjusting to the new culture, repatriation is also a process of adjustment, readjustment and re-entry. Now, we would wonder why anybody would require adjustment to his own home country. See students, it is just simple as that, many of you may be staying in away from your home, many of you may be studying in hostels, PGs with some relative, etc. So, you have been used to living in your home for so long and you love your home, everything is there. But after a period of time when you move to your home, then sometimes it is difficult to place things, that where are those things which I have had kept at a particular place. You feel a little time and sometimes a little awkward in your own home because things seem a little strange or different to you or alien to you. So, similarly a person who has stayed in a foreign land for a long period of time, when he or she comes back, then it is difficult for them to again reorient themselves according to the culture of their homeland. It is not a question of not having love for your own country, it is just a question of being as human beings, we kind of develop a habit of living in a particular way, and when that environment changes, then we face a lot of problems in readjustment. The repatriation process is the most overlooked in the whole of the expatriation assignment. So, because when an expatriate is sent, lot of emphasis is given on making him comfortable, training him so that he does not fail in the assignment. But when he comes back, many of the organizations do not pay much of importance on how he should be helped to readjust in his home country. Often a company has not prepared well and in advance for the eventual return of their employees. While it may seem a trivial matter to some, there are many issues for the returning employee and his family. So, this is a very important issue, though it may sound very small, that what big deal, you are returning to your own home, but it is an important issue and that is why we are discussing it here. A well thought out plan for repatriation should be at least well thought out as a departure plan for the expatriate. So, as we have worked on the departure plan on the movement plan of the employee to a foreign location, similarly we should work on the plan of bringing the person back to his home country. Now, importance of repatriation. There should be a physical relocation plan, a transition plan for the employee and an allowance for readjustment. The MNC's ability to retain current and attract future expatriates is affected by the manner in which it handles repatriation. So, any person when you are wanting to select for sending to a foreign assignment, now when people see that when he was sent to the international assignment, then he was sent with lot of fanfare and he was trained and he was helped at every step, but when he is being brought back, he is being just dumped into his home country. So, when in future you want to select good people to be sent on foreign assignments, you will not get good competent people or the right kind of people, because many people will express their inability or they will just withdraw from going to an international assignment. So, that will be a big loss for the company. So, that because just they have seen the way their fellow colleagues have been treated on repatriation, how much problematic it was for them to adjust to the home country. And also the repatriation is important because research indicates that turnover rates of expatriates is double in comparison to employees who have not taken up international assignment. This is also very important that there are chances, there are twice the more chances of people who have gone for expatriation and then they are repatriated, their chance of leaving the organization are double the times, more in case of persons who have not been expatriated. So, that is how repatriation has to be handled in a very, very serious and a planned way. Now, in the earlier lecture we had talked about culture shock, that is the kind of shock the person faces when he goes to a foreign country and he observes a culture or he comes across a culture which is totally different from his home culture. Now, when the person comes back, then also the same thing applies, because 5-6 years or more than that even he has led his life in the foreign country. Now, he has get used to that kind of a culture. Now, when he comes back to his own culture, this own culture becomes a little alien to him. So, that is what we call as a reverse culture shock. Just as employees experience culture shock in the transition to the expatriate assignment, there may likely exist reverse cultural shock on the repatriate and his family. This reverse culture shock should not be dismissed as unimportant, because this is the reason why there are double more chances of expatriates or repatriates leaving the organization in comparison to employees who have not been expatriated. Reverse culture shock is the emotional and psychological distress suffered by some people when they return home after a number of years overseas. And you must have, I am sure, come across or heard about such persons that they were not able to adjust in their home country. This can result in unexpected difficulty in readjusting to the culture and values of the home country now that the previously familiar has become unfamiliar. And so, there lies the basic reason of facing a culture shock and why we are so much focusing on repatriation, because now the things which were familiar to us earlier, now they have become unfamiliar. Being an expatriate is such a lengthy and deep international experience. It brings about great professional and personal changes. Now, what are the stages of reverse culture shock? Reverse culture shock is usually described in 4 stages, where the employee is being called back to the organization. The first stage is disengagement, that he is told that his assignment in the foreign country is over and now he can move back to his own country. So, he has to break away from the culture of the foreign country so that he can return to his home country. So, he disengages. Then the second stage is that of initial euphoria, that is, the employee is very happy that the assignment is over and he remembers his country, he remembers his people there, he remembers the food there, and he wishes, oh, how quickly I can move back to my home country. But then what happens when he comes back to his home country? Few days are very good, but later the realities step in, that for many things now they have become used to what happened in the foreign country. So now they are no longer they don't remember how things will work out here. So he goes through a phase of, he or she goes through a phase of irritability and hostility. The people do not like things in their home country. They kind of always refer to what happened in the foreign country. Oh, it was so good there, the fruits were so good there, the air quality was so good there. So many things they would refer to of the foreign assignment or the foreign country when they come back to their own country. So there is lot of irritability, there is lot of hostility. And then here the role of HR becomes important, that if the HR has played a kind of a positive role or an effective role or a proactive role for the repatriated employee, then after the initial euphoria itself, the employee will not go through the third stage. He will move on to a process of readjustment and adaptation. So like we prepared him for the international assignment, we have to again prepare him or her to come back to their home country. Adding a new culture on expatriation may create a habit that is hard to break upon a return home. The degree of reverse culture shock may be directly proportional to, so there may be employees who may face a lot of culture shock. There may be employees who may adjust very well with their home country. So what does it depend on? The first factor which it depends upon is the length of time spent overseas. Greater the time, greater the shock. This is much obvious because the more the time you spent in a foreign country, the more you get mingled with its culture, the more the culture seeps into your daily life and your living lifestyle, and it becomes very, very difficult upon return to readjust. So that is, if the length of time, so for example if we go only for 6 months or 1 year, then adjustment is much easier, but if we return after 5 years or 10 years, then adjustment is all the more difficult. And the second factor is extent of the difference in cultures between the expatriate's home country and the foreign country. So if our cultures, if my culture at the home country and the culture in my foreign assignment are more or less the same, then in that case I will not face much of a reverse culture shock. But if an employee is assigned to a country whose culture is totally different, at odds with the culture of his home country, then in that case he or she will face a lot of problems and lot of time in just coping up with the reverse culture gap. So if a person is sent to a neighboring country, then the culture would more or less be the same. So that shock can be reduced. 3 factors determine the success of repatriation from international assignments. The first factor is work environment. So this is again of a lot of importance, significance, because if when we return back to our home country and we get a good, positive, very, very healthy work environment there, then it is easy to adjust. But if we get a very, very hostile, negative work environment in our home country, then most of the time the employee will be remembering, he will be just very, very sad why he had to return to his home country. The culture here is so bad, the work environment is so bad. So he will be just remembering and being nostalgic, and he may be cursing his organization or his decision to come back. So work environment is very important. Second is socio-cultural factors, that is how far there has been a change in the society or the cultural background, the factors which shape up the culture. So if there has been a lot of change, then again the employee will face a shock, because he was used to a particular style of the society or the culture. Now it has changed drastically, so again there will be a shock. And then we have the family factors, that is how well the family has been able to adjust in the country. maybe if they were not able to adjust in the foreign assignment, he will be too happy to come back, so there won't be any reverse cultural shock. But if the family was adjusted very well in the international assignment, but somehow the other they have not been able to adjust themselves in the home country now, so again there will be lot of reverse cultural shock. It generally happens, you know, if the children were small when the employee went for expatriation and now they have become grown up, it will be difficult for the children to adapt to the home country culture. So that those things also, these three are the criteria which determine that how far the person will be success after repatriation from an international assignment. And what can the HR department do for handling repatriation? So, HR can have certain initiatives for handling repatriation. First is establish regular contact. That is very important, because many times the employee feels alien or left out or cut off from his home country. When he feels that kind of a thing, then it is very difficult to re-establish the connection, right. So, it is imperative for the HR department to maintain a regular contact and touch with the employees, so that he never feels that he has moved away from his roots, and once that feeling will be there, then in that case he will be very easily, it will be very easy to uproot him from the foreign assignment and then again plant him in the home country's soil. But if the regular contact had not been established, then it will be difficult. Open clear lines of communication with line manager. So, the person who he was reporting to, the expatriate who was, for example, we send Mr. X from the home country to the foreign assignment. So, whosoever is his reporting manager, reporting authority, we have been in, we as HR department should be in regular contact with that person, that how this person is doing, how well he or she is performing, and the preparation for repatriation should also start by taking the line manager into confidence, because the line manager is someone who is very close to the expatriated employee, and he has a lot of communication every day with this expatriated employee. So, he would be the best person to help him handle the repatriation issue also. Then provide welcome packs ahead of employees return. Now, what are these welcome packs? It does not mean any gifts or something, but it can be small tips, small pieces of help, advice, suggestions, etc. So, welcome packs are those. So, for example, we can have a list of kind of important phone numbers ready for the employee, the medical help and doctors for different specializations, and then we can have a list of schools ready for the children to be admitted to different schools. What can be the possibilities, what can be the options. We can also help them in searching for an accommodation, that also can be done. So, these will be the welcome packs which the employee will be very happy to receive on his or her return, and kind of will help in avoiding to a large extent the reverse culture shock. Conduct post assignment debriefs. Now, what is this? This is like whatever the assignment he was given in the foreign country. After the assignment is complete, because the employee will still remember his days in the foreign country. So, just asking him to forget about those days will not be good, then he will face a lot of problems in adjusting to the new culture. So, little mentions of how well he was performing, what kind of assignment he was given, what were the challenges he faced in those assignments would be of a great help in healing him or helping him readjust with the new culture or the new work environment. Involve them socially. Now this is very very important, because we have already discussed that many expatriations and also repatriation fail because, or not because of the employee, but because of the inability of the family to adjust and adapt to the home country culture. As I have already mentioned that when the expatriate was sent on a foreign assignment, his children or her children were very small, or they were not even born. Now once they were born and they were brought up in a foreign country, for them that is the culture they know, right. That is the kind of lifestyle, that is the kind of society which they have encountered by the time they gain their senses. So for them, for the adults, the parents, it may be difficult, but it is not so difficult for them to adjust to the home country culture. But for the children who have not seen any other culture, and rather they have not much experienced the home country culture, for them it is very difficult to adjust on repatriation. And as a result of that, when the children are not able to adjust, the entire family faces problems, you can very well understand, and the employee himself or herself is not able to then concentrate properly, because he is just preoccupied with his personal problems and he does not know what to do. So it is very important for the organization to step in and help here, and these people should be involved socially. So whatever there are celebrations in the organization, whatever festivals are being done, whatever games are being organized, whatever way in which we can involve them so that they develop a social circle, they come more encounter the culture of the home country, they develop a feeling, or they kind of experience that people are happy in this culture, happy in the home country, and they can create their own network and socialize. So this will help them in adjusting to the home country. So this goes a lot. Otherwise also, we have already many times discussed that man is a social animal, so cannot stay in isolation. So the person who was adjusted of having a kind of a network in the foreign country, and suddenly his network is kind of just cut off and he has moved to a different place. So it is the organization's responsibility to help him develop his own social network, and that is only possible when the organization conducts certain informal activities, so that the employees, their families, they come together, they mingle with each other, and kind of they develop their own set of relationships, so that the repatriated employee and his family is able to adjust in a better way in the home culture. And then it is very important to manage expectations in handling repatriation, because when people take up international assignments, it is generally they will like to move to a country which is better in terms of infrastructure, in terms of economy than their own country. Very rarely people would move to a country which is lower in the ladder to their country in terms of healthcare services, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of GDP, national income, etc. So when people are when their international assignment ends and expatriates are asked to move back home, then the level of their expectations is very high, because they are used to having a particular lifestyle, a particular compensation package, a particular set of benefits. So they come with a lot of expectations back to their home country, because they feel that they have been performing well in the foreign assignment. So whatever they are enjoying here in the foreign assignment will all be replicated in the home country, which is quite impossible, because every country will have its own set of strengths and its own set of constraints. So when these expectations, when the employee have very high expectations and these expectations cannot be fulfilled, then also there is a problem, right? There is a problem and the employee is not able to adjust in his home country. So before the employee, steps back to his home and to his own soil, it is important to clarify, what he should expect. He should also be, it is also important and it is also wise to know the expectations of the employee, repatriated employee, and to discuss with him or her that how these expectations are. Some of them are valid, some of them are not valid, some of them can be fulfilled, some of them cannot be fulfilled. So these are the important ways in which the HR can deal with repatriation. So, I am hope that you have understood the concept of expatriation and now repatriation, and how these both processes are important from an HR perspective. Otherwise, the company will not be able to manage its international operations if the employees are not able to adjust to the culture of a foreign country, and then coming back to the culture of their own home country. So, that is how these are important for strategic human resource management. Thank you.